Think you know where Seattle is headed? Think again. While everyone is talking about the same old headlines, the city's been quietly changing in ways most people haven't even noticed. Today, I'm breaking down the 20 biggest changes coming to Seattle in 2026, and a few of them might just completely change how you see this city. Let's get to it. I kept hearing the same thing. I love Seattle, but why does it feel so hard? It wasn't the rain. It wasn't the traffic. It was finding the right fit. And that is exactly what's changing in Seattle right now. Seattle is splitting into lifestyle micro cities. Seattle didn't get confusing, it got specific. This isn't one city anymore. It's a collection of different lifestyles hiding inside of one map. Pick the right area and Seattle feels effortless. Pick the wrong one and every day feels like friction. One person wakes up, grabs coffee, walks to the light rail and feels connected. Another spends every morning fighting traffic, wondering why the city feels so exhausting. That's the shift happening right now. Downtown is becoming more residential, transit corridors are growing, neighborhoods are developing their own identities. The question isn't just, can I afford Seattle? The question is, which version of Seattle actually fits my life? Seattle's waterfront is becoming the city's backyard. For years, Seattle's waterfront was something you just looked at, not something you lived in. That is changing. The waterfront is becoming part of everyday Seattle life. Morning walks, lunch breaks. This isn't just a prettier waterfront. Seattle is finally reconnecting with the water. And when the city creates space people want to use every day, it changes how the entire city feels. Downtown didn't fail. It stopped being single use. It isn't disappearing. It's shedding its old job description, which is huge. For years, downtown lived and died by 9 to 5. That model, no longer. And instead of chasing 2019, downtown did something smarter. During the day, downtown still moves, coffee lines along 2nd and 3rd, sidewalk buzz around Westlake, just different bodies, fewer suits, more backpacks, and more laptops posted at cafes, which is huge. Even with office vacancies still hovering around 30% and hybrid work clearly here to stay, downtown still didn't empty out. It shuffled itself. The energy shifted from frantic to flexible. But the real change shows up at night. Evenings don't collapse anymore. Lights stay on in Belltown and the Denny Triangle. Restaurants don't live or die by happy hour alone. Streets feel occupied, not abandoned. And that's what happens when thousands of resident units are already downtown or in the pipeline, including office to residential conversions that didn't even exist 5 years ago, when people actually live downtown instead of commuting through it. Downtown isn't trying to be loud, it's trying to be usable. More residents means more consistency, more predictable foot traffic. That's not decline, that's a new rhythm. That's recalibration. When a place changes identity, it gets awkward before it gets good. But the direction matters. Downtown is becoming mixed use on purpose. Seattle convenience used to mean one thing: how close are you to downtown? Now it means something way more personal. How fast can you touch the places you actually live your life? That Seattle to Bellevue connection is a mindset shift all by itself. When the East Link is fully in play, you're talking about crossing the lake in roughly 10 minutes instead of gambling 40 plus in traffic. That is huge. The region finally starts acting like one place instead of two planets separated by water and stress. Then you've got Mercer Island getting pulled tighter into the daily life loop. That's huge for people who want a calmer home base but still want to stay plugged into access. Step onto the platform, the doors slide shut, the train hums, and suddenly you're moving without gripping the steering wheel. It's not suburb versus city anymore. It's how quickly can I drop in when I want energy and then drop out when I don't. Jerkins Park is one of those quiet game changers people underestimate. That single stop reshapes how buyers think about living just off the obvious path. Neighborhoods that used to come with this, I love it, but getting anywhere is annoying, suddenly don't. When access shows up, the question flips from, can I tolerate this, to why didn't I do this sooner? So if you're choosing a neighborhood using old Seattle logic, you can accidentally buy yourself a daily inconvenience you didn't even budget for. But if you choose with access in mind, you can upgrade your lifestyle without changing your job, without changing your hobbies or your income. Because jobs don't chase talent anymore. They chase connectivity too. A lot of people get faked out by the headlines. Seattle didn't fix traffic. It rewrote the rules of who wins. It doesn't do victory laps when it commits. It just keeps building. Now, while the internet debates whether companies are leaving, the employers that actually anchor this region are doing just the opposite. They're doubling down quietly and permanently. Now, you don't see the press conference for it. You see cranes that never leave. At the Port of Seattle, there's a $1 billion+ capital investment plan already underway. Tech didn't vanish, it matured. Even with office space shedding excess, Seattle still supports hundreds of thousands of tech jobs, and those workers didn't disappear. People still work here. They don't have badges and they don't have to clock in at Lake Union by 8:30 a.m. anymore. Logistics and healthcare are even harder to move. Down in Soto and along the industrial corridor, logistics and the port adjustment employers are expanding capacity. Here's what actually matters for day-to-day life, not just economic charts. Jobs don't just anchor paychecks. They anchor neighborhoods, transit, services, and when major employers commit long-term, everything around them steadies. That's also why Seattle feels expensive but resilient. It's uncomfortable in the short term, but powerful over time. The people who do well here understand that stability doesn't always look exciting. And once employers lock in, a second reality shows up fast. People still have to get to work, not just where offices are, but how movement actually happens now, which sets up the next shift perfectly. Green space is becoming Seattle's secret weapon. Seattle's green space isn't just about pretty views anymore. It's becoming part of how people survive and thrive in a growing city. Parks and trails become the reset button. The morning walk before work, the evening escape after a long day, a place where the city finally slows down. For years, green space felt like a bonus. Now, it's becoming a deciding factor in where people want to live. That's why trails, Parks, waterfront spaces, and neighborhoods' green areas are becoming more intentional. They're what keeps the city livable. Because the future of Seattle isn't just about building higher, it's about creating a city where people can step outside, slow down, and still feel connected to nature. And that balance is becoming one of Seattle's biggest advantages. Let's get honest about the phrase everyone throws around. Seattle is expensive. And that part is true, but it's also incomplete. The real question isn't what Seattle costs, it's what you're getting for what you're paying. Because two people can spend the same amount of money here and live total different lives. One feels squeezed every single day. The other feels like the city is finally working with them, not against them. The average Seattle household now spends over 30% of its income on housing. But when you factor in the transportation, that number can jump fast depending on where you live. A long daily commute can add 10 to 15 hours a week back on your plate, unpaid, unnoticed, and while living near transit, or if you work close to where you live, that can give you time back. And when housing and transportation are combined, they often make up nearly half of the household real monthly cost. That's what people mean when they say Seattle feels hard. Too much time lost to commuting, paying for space they barely use, living far from where their routines actually make them happy. Seattle doesn't reward everyone equally, but it does reward people who live intentionally. Seattle isn't getting harder, it's getting clearer. This city rewards people who choose intentionally where they live, how they move, and how they spend their time. The difference between struggling in Seattle and loving Seattle often comes down to one thing: finding the right fit. If you're thinking about making a move, our local Seattle real estate team helps people find that version of Seattle that matches your lifestyle. Our information is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.